What happens in the mind of con artists? What makes their brain so well equipped for psychological trickery? Is it greed? A lack of empathy? Loose morals? Whatever it is, we are fascinated by con artists.
Frederick Bourdin is a French serial imposter the press has nicknamed the Chameleon. He began his impersonations as a child and claims to have assumed at least 500 false identities.
In 1994, a young boy, Nicholas Barklay, went missing in Texas. Frederick Bourdin took the identity of the still missing Nicholas Barklay.
Although Bourdin had brown eyes and a French accent, he managed to convince the family and the authorities he was Nicholas Barklay.
The Frenchman, a fraud, named Frédéric Bourdin.
Was ordered to do a DNA test. He pleaded guilty to passport fraud and perjury.
Frederick served 6 years in an American prison before being deported to France.
A private investigator compared the ears of Bourdin to the ears of Nicholas Barklay.
So I knew right away I had an imposter.
We've all been lied to. We've all been offered something that is just too good to be true. And still, we fell for it. Although we love a good con, we hate it when it happens to us. To find out how to resist the manipulation, we invited some of the greatest con artists to our institute. Together with a team of experts, we are going to analyze their stories, pick their brains, and reveal what their body language tells us. Welcome to the Institute.
Hello, Mr. Bourdin.
Hello, lady.
How are you?
Very good.
They're ready?
Me too.
Mr. Bourdin, take a seat.
Hi.
I'm Kerry Daines. I am a consultant forensic psychologist, and let me introduce you to Mark Frank. He is a professor of behavioural science, and we've got Moran Cerf, who is a professor of neuroscience. So I think that it's important to point out that obviously we're not your doctors, so we're not here to diagnose you. And this isn't a form of therapy. We're just hoping to learn from you.
It's my therapy.
It is your therapy?
I will take it as a therapy, just for myself. I'm not asking you to be my therapist, but whatever happens in the next few days, it will be my therapy.
Right. So what will be helpful to me is if I can start to understand the psychological and social factors that underlie your conning behaviour. So I'm going to spend some time talking to you about your history later on, but we're also going to put you through a series of assessments.
I'm going to play games with you. I'm going to ask you questions, and I'm going to try to understand how you think by looking at your brain. So all the time where I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to also monitor your brain activity and try to see if there are differences between what you tell me and what your brain says.
And then, from my point of view, being a behavioral scientist, I'm interested in what is going on in the brain and how it manifests itself on the external expressive behavior. So in terms of what happens to people in their faces and their voices and other nonverbal channels.
So I'm going to be talking to you in a very short while, but why don't you go and settle yourself in, make yourself at home, have a look around and start to get a feel for the place, and I'll see you soon.
Sure.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
was lunch?
Oh, very, very good.
Good.
I like fish.
Good, I'm pleased to hear it. So, Frederick, you're 47, 48, is it now?
No, I'm 46.
46? Sorry, am I aging you?
Next month I'll be 47.
Next month, oh, not long to go. You'll be 47, the same as me. And I understand that you were born in Nanterre?
Nanterre,
Nanterre?
yes.
In France?
District of Paris, yeah.
So when you were 23, you had found yourself in Spain, and then you chose to be a missing boy?
Normally in Spain, you go there, they put you in a shelter, you stay there weeks, months, and then you run away, nobody cared. But in that place in particular, I don't know why, the juvenile judge and the prosecutor went to see me and told me they really wanted to know who I was. They wanted me to prove to them who I was. And then they said a magic word. If you don't do that, we're gonna take your fingerprints and we're gonna take your picture. And I knew that if they did that, in a few hours they would know who I was and they would send me to prison. So I said, okay, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I'm American, but I don't want you to call my family. I want to call them myself. And surprisingly, they agreed. They let me just do what I want. There was the fax and the phone. I took the phone, and at the beginning, I started calling every police from big cities, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, telling them always the same story. I'm a police officer, or I'm a shelter director, and we have what's about a 14-year-old kid here who's been missing apparently 4 years from your country. We don't know who he is, but the American embassy says American because of his accent. But the answer was always the same. Do you know how many posters of missing person we have on our walls? You need to call the Center of Missing Person of Arlington in Virginia. And I talked to a lady, nice lady, very helpful. She really wanted to help. So the lady came with Nicholas Barklay.
Nicholas Barklay was just 13 years old when he disappeared here back in June of 1994. He has blue eyes, light brown hair. Barklay also has 3 tattoos, including letters on his left hand, left shoulder, and left ankle. If you have any information...
Do you think that maybe he's trying to tell us, look, this wasn't calculated?
Exactly.
This wasn't premeditated?
He has 8 hours, right? It's nighttime, 8 hours, everyone's gone, it's him and a phone. And by the morning, he has to solve a problem. He has to figure out who is going to be next and how he gets out of this thing where they're going to take his fingerprint and so on. And he manages, like in very little time, to orchestrate what became his defining kind of life moment. He
Yes.
finds a character, he moves to a different country. So he tells us a story where it happened to him. But I think that 8 hours, fast decisions, critical ones that happened to him. I think to me, I found it as like a interesting moment and revealing of his psychology.
So at some point, Nicholas Barklay's sister comes to Spain to pick up her lost brother. Tell us what happened.
I was in my room on that morning with the door locked. I bleached my hair, I made some tattoos. I got sunglasses, I got a scarf and gloves. But still, I mean, I've seen what Nicholas Barklay looked like. So for me, it was just a nightmare. This woman was gonna be very mad, very shocked, very sad, and I'm gonna get my ass kicked and sent to prison. That was what was going in my mind. I just got out of my room, went down the stairs, and at the moment she saw me, she jumped on my arms, hugging me, saying that how she knew, she said she knew, I knew it was you, I knew I was gonna see you. I remember that teeny nose. What did I have? a bandana, a hat, a scarf, and a small voice.
How do you change your voice? Can you show us how you change your voice? I know that's it's difficult to perform on command, but you've obviously spent many, many months of your life doing this. So what is your teen voice?
Well, the voice is just a part of everything else.
Mm. You're not going to let me hear it?
I'm shy.
Okay.
Sorry.
This is Eyewitness News at 10.
He disappeared without a trace 3 years ago. Tonight, a San Antonio boy is back home. Nicholas Barklay is now 16 years old. He vanished when he was 13. Nicholas says he was kidnapped and taken to Spain. He says for 3 years he was repeatedly drugged, beaten, and raped, all part of a sex slave operation involving dozens of missing children.
Somehow, a 13-year-old boy from San Antonio ended up in Spain without a passport. He claims his captors changed his appearance to make him unrecognizable. He was no longer allowed to speak English.
Did they rape you all every night?
Me? No, because they didn't rape me every night. Some of them, they like more. Some of the kids, they like more. They rape them usually 2 or 3 times a week.
When that was happening, did you think, I've gone too far here?
What do people do when they feel emotions? What do they do with their voices, their faces, their bodies? How good are we at spotting it? Who's good at this? Who's not good at this? And then even a little bit of a strategic element. Who's more willing to lie and for what reasons? And what reasons are we willing to believe lies? Many times we believe lies because we want to believe them.
So tell me about your parents. Tell me what circumstances you were born into.
My mother was coming from a very troubled family. For my grandfather, Arabic people should have dealt with nuclear weapons, and black people were monkeys and needed banana. So when my mother got pregnant of me with this Arabic person, she ordered my mother to have an abortion.
She was only 18 at the time, was she?
Yeah, she was about 18, yeah.
How do you know that your mother was asked by her father to have an abortion? Who's told you that?
He wrote it in his, his journal.
Right.
Which I one day found out in his closet. I wasn't that hurt because his youngest daughter spent my entire childhood saying things like, why can't this f***ing Arabic shit die? Why this raton wouldn't die? Why can't it just f***ing die all the time, f***ing Arabic? So I was used to racist insults from his youngest daughter, which was a clear reflect of what her father was. And my mother, she wasn't just not capable of looking after me, she was abusive. Some people say you can't remember from that early age, but I do. So I remember one trip we had in train. I was hungry, and she gave me some money to get a sandwich. But the train was going to stop only 2 minutes. So I started getting out of the train to take a sandwich. But then I realized that the train was going to go because the controller starting, blowing on the whistle. So I jumped back on the train crying because I was very much afraid that the train was going away. And I ran to her and I was very sad, very, very, very scared of the experience. And I can see the smile on her face again. Right now, I can see it. She was happy that I was despair.
Well, we're here in the memory room, and I suppose we've all got a memory room, haven't we, in our own minds that stores almost like a Facebook timeline of significant events in our lives, and it tells us so much about who we are. Our memories, they can be cherished possessions, or they can be the things that haunt us the most. One of my earliest memories is going to a zoo, but I must have been, I don't know, 2 or 3 years old, so could I even biologically have that memory? I don't think it's possible, is it?
And we can see that again as we go to Frédéric, right? So he's telling his story of his youth. There's some, real things in there. There may be some other things that may not be. Part of that is, I think, also a little bit of reading the audience.
Well, that's his motivation, isn't it? Because it's not money that he wants. He wants a response from the audience. He wants to elicit those, as he sees them, caring, loving responses, or treat me as though I am a child in need of your protection and your care.
And I can shape the story in just enough way till I start to get the reaction from somebody.
What's interesting here is that we are part of this thing. So we kind of think of ourselves as audience. The story just is told and we're just taking notes, but actually our nodding our heads to the right moment makes the story go in one direction. If we did this, then maybe it will go in a different direction. We laugh in the right spot. So probably us three in the room got one version. You and you independently got a different version than I did. And there's also the truth that he tells himself before he goes to sleep, which is probably another version of the story. Somewhere between all of those lies what actually happened.
Childhood, so our first 16 years, affect our adult life, whether or not we care to admit it or whether or not we're aware of the connection. Because during those first 16 years, we're really building up a blueprint for the world. So we're figuring out who we are, how other people interact with us. Are we going to be treated well? Are we going to be treated with contempt or aggression? Are we going to be neglected? Our expectations are built really in our childhood, and of course things can change throughout the lifespan, things evolve, but I think that we spend an awful lot of time as adults trying to fulfill desires that we had as a child. Psychologists call it unmet needs. Unmet needs from childhood often drive adult behavior.
For me, the worst part was the neighbor. One day, unfortunately, the TV broke down. And the neighbor next door, who was a man living with his mother, he said to my grandmother, "If you want, he can come in my house, watch the cartoons." So I went there. I knocked at the door. He opened the door, he turned on the TV for about 7 seconds. And then he turned it off. And he said, "You see, there is nothing." Then he left, he went upstairs, and he said, "Come, I want to show you something." So I went up, and he told me, "If you show me your penis, I will show you mine." And then he got me undressed. And we got in the bed, and he raped me in the bed, and for a while. And then he noticed that I was crying. I wasn't crying a lot.
In the beginning, you see, a lot of the eyebrows down. People do this when they concentrate, right? So trying to remember a date or a name. He does show a little bit of sort of this sadness in the recall. The lips come down, fingers pushed up. Again, very early on, as he starts to tell the story about them exposing themselves to each other.
And he said, "You're crying?" And I didn't say nothing. He said, "Do you want to go home?" I said, "Yes." He opened the door, I ran directly to my aunt. And I told her, and she started laughing, like I've been telling the biggest joke there is on earth. So I went to my grandmother, and my grandmother said, "You don't have to go back there." And And that was it.
And then there's sort of a neutral, and then and then it was crying, and then sort of skip over at this point. So there was not as much detail as what went on in the other parts. Now, what do we make of this? We don't know, right? Is it because he's inventing the account? Is it because of the trauma associated with the account that he therefore just wants to get over it, right? There's some controversy as far as what happens to people recalling events that are traumatic in some way. But from a behavioral point of view, again, we can see a variety of things happening throughout the sequence and changes within that sequence.
Do these micro-expressions say anything about truthfulness?
There are no behavioral signs that guarantee somebody's lying or telling the truth. And it's not sort of what we're really doing here. We're not out to say, okay, he's lying about this, he's telling the truth about this, or anything along those lines. It's just what's sort of the emotional, behavioral profile of these individuals as they're recalling and going forward.
He talks very, very easily, and it's almost as though he's already been through the first stages of therapy. And he's got his story in his mind, but he's stuck somewhere in his past. He's not moved through and processed his past. He's very much still in there. And what I mean by that is there were times when the emotion came to the fore really quite rapidly. He became tearful. But he said to me that he felt that if he really had caused great distress, then he wouldn't be able to be in this world.
If the family of this boy would have been convinced that I was his boy, at the day it would have been revealed to them that I wasn't, then I don't think I would be sitting in front of you today.
So what do you notice?
It's sadness, I would say.
It's a bit of a trick question.
Yeah.
Because it's not what's there, it's what's not there.
He was basically saying that if he thought that he had done something dreadful, then he wouldn't be able to live with himself because that's not the type of person that he is. So it means that I have to take into account that he's only here for a few days, and it limits me because I don't want to challenge him too much on that. Because obviously, he's somebody who's in a fragile emotional state.
When people are genuinely distressed, right, our emotions are involuntary actions. We don't pick and choose them, right? And so with the involuntary aspect of emotions, that makes them somewhat hard to fake. We can often portray it, we can smile when we're not happy and things like this. But distress, which is what you might expect in a moment like this, is one of the hardest ones to fake, right? It involves there's the muscles in the middle of the forehead, right? When people are distressed, we tend to see that inner part go up. So if he was feeling distress at this moment, maybe he thinks about it, but as far as actually feeling it at that moment, this suggests it's not there.
Oh.
Because that muscle does move. He does show it in other parts of the interview. Not that he's paralyzed or can't show it, he does.
Are we falling for somebody who wants to elicit care and sympathy in other people?
So it's a binary thing. We have two options. Either it's a really, really good trick and we're part of that, or we're really tapping into something very, very fragile, and then we should be
cautious.
So to be on the safe side, I would definitely say cautious is kind of our go-to. But I think that one way to see if we're really falling for that is to, between the three of us, we can respond to the same story differently. So with Bourdin, we ran an experiment that's known in the literature as the choice blindness experiment. It was invented about 10 years ago by two Swedish scientists, Lars Hall, Peter Johansson, colleagues of mine that I work closely with, and they invented a clever way to make people cheat live. We show you two cards with two pictures of two people you don't know. And we ask you, who do you find more attractive? The person on the left or the person on the right? Afterwards, you will see the picture you chose again on the screen, just that picture. And I'm going to ask you to just think about the reasons you chose this person. You did it 100 times. It seems to you like it's a simple experiment, and that's all that Bourdin knew. That he sees two pictures, he makes a decision, and then he has to explain why he made the choice.
Because she looked honest.
Trial 2.
Innocent.
Trial 3.
She's more real.
But there's a trick here, and the trick makes it interesting. The trick is that every now and then, maybe every 10 trials or so, if he chose the card on the left, I give him the card on the right, the card he didn't pick. And then he is confronted with a choice that he did not make, but he thinks I gave him the one he asked for. So when I asked him to explain his choice, he either has to tell me, this isn't my choice, I don't know what happened here, it's a different card, or he has to come up on the spot with a creative answer to a choice he didn't make that will actually assume that it is his choice. And then we can look at his brain and see how fast, how good, and how unique is he in coming up with a story that explains something he didn't make as if it was his choice. If you see that suddenly the activity moves from being very slow to very fast, you can characterize this as he is using memory more than the usual. It's very hard to get that. So at least when I get that, I say, okay, this is a person for whom coming up with stories is easy and happens fast. So he is unique in that aspect.
So when you were 16, that was the first time that you ran away from the centre.
Didn't treat me well because I was weird, because I was different, because I was strange.
So you ran away to Paris.
So yeah, the first time I ran away to Paris. And I walked toward Paris in nighttime, in the middle of nowhere. I don't even know where I was. I met two adult men. They invited me to a pub. They made me drink beer. Then they asked me if I was gay. I told them not. And I saw a man following me. So I went to the phone booth. I called the police and I told them that I was a tourist and I've seen an English child. He was about 14 years old and he needed assistance. He looked lost.
Where did that thought come from? Where did that idea come from? I can understand that you felt unsafe and you felt that you wanted to do something, but why did that involve creating the identity of somebody, well, particularly a British teenager, when you're a French teenager in Paris?
I didn't like myself.
We really need to address this issue, I think, before we move any further with our assessment of Frederick. I'm really keen to hear your observations about whether or not he is as vulnerable as he portrays himself to be. He is still somebody who is vulnerable, is traumatized. And he said, if he thought that he had caused distress to the family of Nicholas Barklay, which clearly he did, then he wouldn't be able to live with himself. He wouldn't want to be here anymore.
When you first told me that, I didn't even know how to kind of think about it, and I went home and I kept thinking about it and was extremely concerned. I basically imagined the worst case scenario and said, Would I tell myself, oh, but it was kind of a TV show, so it's okay, and so on? And I felt uncomfortable.
When I looked at the footage of this, I noticed he was referring to 15, 20, whatever many years ago this was. So that made me a little bit more comfortable. He was I wouldn't be here today if I'd felt that way then.
Is he at risk of leaving here and maybe showing up somewhere unexpected as a teenage boy? Because he said during my interview, I could do this again. I've been thinking about it recently. I could get away with this again. And he told me in the corridor not so long ago that he doesn't plan to go home from here. He plans to go to Serbia. Hi. I've been looking for Moran everywhere. Have you seen him?
No, it's been a while since I saw him.
Don't know what to make of Frédéric Bourdin. He confuses me in some respects. Have you spoken to him?
Yes, he kept saying how the world is just broken and how sad everything is, and then...
And did he make you feel sorry for him in particular?
Yeah, I think so. The picture he gave to me was like he did some mistakes, but it was not his fault. And now he's doing everything best he can in this horrible world to make things right. But also what I realized now you're saying, he was really looking at my face every once in a while quite directly. And like, I think he was also seeing how I was feeling.
And you know what? He's very, very skilled at that. He is one of our most skilled con artists in assessing what other people are feeling. So he's incredibly perceptive in that way.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you were feeling more sympathy towards him, whether you would have had more of a personal story from him.
No, he just told me about his children and his wife and how his wife left him and another sad story. There was a lot of sad stories. He doesn't trust anyone. He doesn't trust anyone.
For a con artist to choose the right victim, he needs to be able to read minds. This particular experiment, which features 10 men lying or telling the truth, helps assess the con man's ability to read accurately what somebody truly believes.
Make a judgment.
I will
circle. And
I will circle my first impression.
There you go.
They should be killed. I mean, it should be executed. I personally couldn't partake in that decision. I mean, I wouldn't have an active part saying yes, but it has to be done. I mean,
Well, why do you believe that? Why does it have to be done?
well, not necessarily have to, but
The guys Bourdin is watching are asked to lie or tell the truth about their opinion on the death penalty or banning smoking. So they either say they are in favor or against. Bourdin has to figure out whether they are lying or not.
Are you lying to me now?
No.
Okay, well, thank you very much for doing this.
So at times when, for example, you were found on the street, weren't you, by a couple in Munich?
Yeah.
Who wanted to adopt you?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about that.
They decided to lay down on the highway. That wasn't the first time I did it, so I knew that there was two options. Either the car go just in top of me and that will be the end of the story, or someone would stop, call the ambulance, the police, and whoever. That's exactly what happened. A car stopped, lots of people stopped, they called the police, the ambulance, and then they asked me, the very important question is, how old are you? So I said 14, so they took me to the children's hospital. And the next morning, I saw a big black guy and a nice lady coming, and they presented themselves. Their names were Bill and Yasmina. The man was from the United States. And, you know, they stay with me, they bring me McDonald's and everything. But then at a certain point, I wanted to leave, and so the police stopped me and put me in a psychiatric children's hospital. So I stayed there a few days, and then it came the question, what was going to happen to me? They said, we want to put you in a children's home, but the police first want to take your fingerprints and your picture. The German police immediately found out who I was because I've been acting very much in Germany. And then I called Bill and Jasmine, and they were mad at me because they discovered that I wasn't 14, but I was 19.
That's French. It. So they were upset. They were upset to find that they had been hoodwinked. I think that people have an awful lot of empathy and sympathy with somebody who wants to be loved, be cared for, and feel that they belong somewhere, because we all feel that. But it's the exploitative way that you went about it. And I feel that your background certainly explains that. It explains the behaviour, but it doesn't justify the behaviour. And I think that you do try and justify your behaviour somewhat.
No, explain it, because there is no justification. There is only action, reaction. I would be, what you say makes sense. I understand what you're saying. I'm not in denial, but I'm at the same time, I have to tell you, what was I supposed to do?
The hope was that he could go to America and he would be enveloped in this wonderful, idyllic family life, which of course it didn't turn out to be, because he's chasing a fantasy.
I guess my question is, let's say he becomes perfect Nicholas Barklay, but the family still doesn't love Nicholas Barklay. Does he succeed or fail?
He fails, but he sets himself up to fail, doesn't he, constantly? Because if you are looking for love and affection, well, how realistic are you being? He's actually wanting to recreate a childhood that doesn't exist. There's no such thing as the perfect Walton's childhood, is there really? Were you looking for some kind of family utopia?
Shelters, family. I was looking, sometimes I found those places where I was one, nobody gave a damn about what was my real name. They called me by the name I gave. I was just 14 years old Alex or 14 years old Ernie. I was looking for this place where I could be, where I could have a normal childhood, going to school, play sports. And that was what I was looking for, the perfect place. Loving mother with their kids, hugging them, and you can see in their eyes and the way they speak that they love them. I wanted that. I didn't want nothing else. I didn't want no money. I didn't want to Nikes, or I didn't want no comfort. I could have slept on the floor like a dog if I did have that. I didn't want nothing else. Just love.
If you present a different identity to your own, to other people, you know in your heart of hearts that whatever love and affection you are getting, it's based on a lie.
He's not just saying, look, I'm Nicholas Barklay, but I'm Nicholas Barklay who has been traumatized.
But by being this traumatized child over and over and over again, you are reenacting trauma, you're reenacting dysfunctional relationships all of the time and dysfunctional behavior all of the time. So it's never going to result in a happy ending.
I knew I was gonna go to prison, and I said, okay, I'm gonna go to prison. I will pay.
You were sentenced to 6 years in prison for passport fraud and perjury. So an American prison is a very, very different environment to a children's home or a foster home or a children's hospital. So how did you cope in that environment?
Inmates knew very quickly that I could do absolutely anything. I could put needles into my arms, I could cut my face, I could act crazy. And the guards hated this.
So it was an act then? So this wasn't you feeling that you wanted to self-harm, this was you acting crazy?
Both.
Both?
I wanted to cut my face. Not deeply, just, superficially, but you can make a lot of bloods anyway. And that was a clear message. So yes, it was manipulative, but at the same time, it felt good because it took my mind somewhere else. And at the same time, looking on the face, and trust me, it's something, of all the inmates looking at you, and I'm talking about hundreds of inmates looking at you with blood everywhere, at least you know for sure that they weren't gonna come and look after you. Especially American, white American, supremacists and all this, they didn't like it. They smelled problems with me. But then the Mexican, because I speak Spanish, because of, I don't know, maybe my aura, I don't know what it is, adopted me. Really, like a family. They were looking after me, we were eating together.
And how much of the real Frederick Bourdin did you show to them?
There was not much left. I was just a Mexican. My accent was Mexican, my way of dressing was Mexican, when there was fights, I had to be a Mexican. And I couldn't just go to a phone booth and call the police and say I'm 14 years old and I'm in prison. So I had to be, and I had to become part of the environment.
There's a number of ways you can try to lie. You can try to go the equivalent of the poker face.
Yeah.
Try to control your behavior. You can try to, some con artists try to create the backdrop. So if I'm kind of trying to convince other people that I am, a prince or some rich guy, I need to sort of paint the walls, if you will, put up stuff that looks really, expensive, show up in a helicopter or a private jet. And you kind of let people deceive themselves about you. It's almost like you don't have to lie. But there's another way you can do this, and that is to so deeply inhabit a character, sort of be able to sort of transport, like method acting, right? But for day-to-day life, not for a play, for a life. Not a lot of people can sort of turn into another character. And there are some branches of con artists, that's the method. It's hard to do. And I think this is what we have here.
In 2003, Frederick Bourdin was released from prison and deported back to France. Bourdin moved to the French city of Grenoble, where he learned of the disappearance of the boy Leo Ballet. He assumed the identity of the boy, but a DNA test revealed Bourdin was lying.
According to an American magazine, a psychiatrist evaluated Bourdin concluded, "We are very pessimistic about modifying."
I think it is true that he was always in this quest for love that he didn't have as a child. I think that is true. But it was not the only thing he was craving. He was also craving attention. It was very important for him that he was not a nobody.
Bienvenido en mi pesadilla personal. Welcome to my personal nightmare.
And what I show them is really what I am. Desperate somehow, sad, lost. And because human beings are naturally, I would say, good inside, they look at me and they see what there is to see, not what I want to show them.
The primary skill of anybody who wishes to deceive, but also because this is about con artistry, and I know that you don't like that term, but it's about evoking real emotions in people, isn't it?
It's evoking real emotion within myself first. It's when I did those things so many times, it never occurred in my head to say, okay, I'm gonna deceive those people. No.
It never occurred to you that you were deceiving them?
I know that I was lying to them about my age and my identity, but to me it was more like a technical things.
You never really knew where to stand with him because he would tell you that he was a liar, that he'd always been a liar. And the only thing he was not lying about is that the thing he was looking for, the thing he was after, was love. That's the only thing that was true.
Now, today, I don't give a single, I don't care about myself. I only care about my kids, my children. They are my world.
Does that then fill the void that you felt?
No, you cannot fill a void like mine. I wish you could. I wish there was an injection or something they would put on my arm and say, that's it, no void anymore.
So what do you do to cope when you're not feeling so good at the moment?
Well, I play video games. So that's, yeah, I love video games. Because video games, people don't see me. So I still can pretend I'm 14. I'm a kid that never grew up. I'm the real Peter Pan. That's me. A normal person would have jumped from a bridge or hanged themselves or end up this misery from long ago. But for some reason, I keep with it.
So it's hard to be you.
Yeah, because everything I did in my life as an adult was to feel good, because I don't feel good. So when you don't feel good, you want to feel good. You want to feel normal. You want to feel you want to feel happy.
I'm really glad that I got to speak to you a number of times because I felt that I got the more authentic you after we'd spoken about your history, and I think I got the more spontaneous you, and I loved chatting to you in the garden.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that I got to know you a bit better over the whole process. I would say that you don't see yourself as a con artist because you were acting out of emotional need rather than for financial gain.
Indeed.
So it's the difference, isn't it, between greedy and needy?
Yeah.
I accept that. What I will say is, though, that when you are very focused on your own emotional needs, you can become insensitive or blind to other people's emotional needs and rights.
That might be
and
true.
I think that is what has happened.
Mm-hmm.
When people are under, stress, this increases the likelihood of doing the dominant response. The dominant response for you is to try to become someone else. Maybe some of the details of your past that you use to just be a little bit more questionable in some ways. You study the characters, if you will, almost, use the word method acting. And that seems to be how you sort of approach this and you inhabit this. And you'd mentioned this to Carrie to some extent, asking about, well, what do you do to affect the appearance of a 15-year-old?
When you have to make choices and then explain them, you're much faster and much different than a lot of the other subjects in quickly coming up with a new story and overwriting existing memories with a new narrative. And when you write a new story, it becomes reality.
So I'd like to give you a challenge because you've got some brilliant skills here, brilliant skills. If you feel the need, as I know that you do, to embody another person, to inhabit another persona for a while because it's difficult to be Frederick Bourdin, then study and mimic a healthy adult, because a healthy adult is somebody that knows that within them, of course, there's an inner child, and that inner child might be wounded. but they don't look for other people to nurture that. They nurture that wounded child themselves, and they have far more concern for the people around them than maybe you did at times. And that's just a far more satisfying way of living life, and I believe that you've got the skills to do it. I really do. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Yeah. Will you try?
I'm an eternal learner, so let's see.
Okay.